He's be talking about winning negotiations. He's been in New York City real estate for over 20 years, negotiated $1 billion worth of deals, and obviously an expert on this topic. And we're lucky to have him. So welcome, Seth.
Me mute myself here, or I'm not muted. All right. Well, perfect. I got there. This is why I have a team of operations people. So, obviously, we're negotiating purchase price, we're negotiating terms, as I mentioned, but we're also negotiating our commission rate. Typically, I would talk about this on a sell side, but now, there's a chance we're going to be negotiating more so on the buy side. Less so here in New York, we're not an NAR. We don't have the same upcoming changes that you guys have, but I think it is going to bleed into the mindset of people here in New York. So far, I've not heard anything about it from anybody really, except, more like conversation, oh, what's going on? But it will be very important to convey value. And, commission is something where, the difference between one commission and another could be 20% of your income. So it's really important that we get very good at that negotiation. And for me, the negotiation with a seller is commission is not only, a way for me to get paid. I certainly get paid, through commission, but I'm an advisor and I'm a consultant. I'm here from the start. I'm a free service for you. However, when you're ready to list, what we want to do is we want to talk about commission from a marketing perspective, a way to entice other people to come to cast the widest net. There's 30,000 agents in New York City. It's probably about 150 of us doing the level of business that I'm doing. However, we want to attract that agent that's doing one piece of business per year. So I always want to connect to the motivation of the person I'm talking to. I don't want to make anything about me. Even when I'm telling stories of my client's success, I make it about my client's success. Obviously, that shines a light on me because they were my clients, but it's very rare that I talk about myself. I know a lot of people historically talk about commission from a perspective of, I'm paying for this, I'm doing that. I never make it about me. It's always about connecting to the motivation and aligning with the goals and the outcomes that our clients want. We're connecting to the goals of the agents that we're talking to. And in line with that, Keller Williams, obviously, we talk about objection handling. I actually call it speaking to concerns, because objection handling makes me think of a tennis racket batting balls away, where speaking to concerns is actually, we have 10 polls. I don't have scripts. I have 10 polls of things that I want to talk about. But I talk to everybody differently based on their wants and needs and their concerns. So it's really important to ask a lot of questions to find out, to really ask, what is a pain point for you? What are you trying to avoid in hiring a real estate agent? I want to hear what their problems or what their expectations of problems or expectations of lack of service or self-interest, whatever it is. I want to find that out so that I can speak to that. It's not just having a rote response, batting away objections. We really need to be more human in this business and really speak to people's concerns. I find that people will take candor and they'll take, hard truths. They'll be more open to it if we have genuine conversations with them as opposed to just rote responses. So I think it's super important to know your quote unquote scripts, but to cater them and change them and adapt per conversation. So this is not a class of exact scripts. It's more how to phrase things, what to not say, how to tweak what you say, and how to understand motivation of the people that you're talking to. And of course, the goal is to have better results for our clients. I talk to my clients only about maximizing their result. I don't talk about getting the highest sales price. I don't talk about getting the best value. Of course, we get into that, but I'm always talking about maximizing the result for them. And that's really important now when you may be negotiating buyer side commission more, to let them know that yes, there is a commission that needs to be paid for the buyer. For me personally, I'm going to try to negotiate that into the offer. However, you're hiring me because I'm an expert negotiator, because I understand the market. I'm going to guide you away from bad opportunity and to good opportunity. When you're talking to the seller's agent, it's like talking directly to the IRS. They're not going to give you the loopholes. They're not going to tell you what tax breaks you're entitled to. Their goal is to try to maximize your price for their seller. My job is to try to maximize the price for you, the buyer. So I am going to make sure not only does that commission get incorporated into the price, but that you net. I always talk about net, that you're netting a better value because you're working with an expert like me. Not making it about a cost, but making it about a benefit. Just like the commission with a seller, it's a net benefit to offer an attractive commission. Net benefit to your bottom line. It's not what you spend during the transaction. It's what you put in your pocket when the dust settles. It is 100% about net. This is a net game, and everything we do is in order to maximize the net benefit for you. Of course, when we do achieve incredible goals for our clients, we get more business. I have one $400,000 buyer that over the last 5 years has led to $80 million worth of referral business. One $400,000 buyer. So I also think it's really important not to work by price point. I'm in a luxury price point at certain times. I have a $4.5 million listing. I have a $9 million listing we're about to put up. I have an $8 million coming up. But I actually love the 1 to 2.5 because it trades the most. And I tend to get the most referrals from that segment of the business too. So we're negotiating our value. We're getting the results that our clients want. And my business is 97% agent or past client referrals. And it's been that way for a long time because I truly put my needs, the needs of my clients way, way ahead of myself. That $400,000 buyer that led to 80 million, she was referred to me by a $3 million cash buyer that I talked out of buying. I told him he should rent. His time horizon just didn't make sense with the market dynamics of the time. Talked him out of buying. He referred me 2 years later, a $400,000 buyer that was not going to make up for the 3 million, but the 80 million in referrals certainly did. So everything we're doing is to hone our craft, become better so that we can better serve our clients. That's the name of the game. I mentioned that I'm sort of consider myself a natural negotiator. Not everybody is. This is 100% something that's teachable and something that you can learn. It is a tactical, strategic way of talking to people, and it's a tactical and strategic way of presenting data. We're looking at the information that's available for us, and we're pulling out the things that are A, going to help our clients, and B, going to maximize the result from the person on the other side of the transaction. So we can 100% learn this. And I taught my personal team negotiation to such a level that I actually hear them on the phone and it sounds like I'm listening to myself. So it's 100% something that we can incorporate and learn. And I know a lot of people, even real estate agents, ironically, because our business is negotiation and talking to people, a lot of people are a little bit, sort of hesitant and scared of negotiation, but it's really just understanding motivation, asking questions, and then presenting the information in a way that moves your case forward. And, this is a pretty standard definition of negotiation. For me, it's just as simple as this. Figure out what motivates who you're talking to, connect to their motivation in order to maximize the result. The result is a higher commission. The result is a higher purchase price. The result is less days on market. The result is a better terms for your buyers. So certainly can be taught. So I'll run through these pretty quick. I usually have a story attached to each of these, which is, why I've earned the nickname Storytime Seth. but also why this class can take up to 2 hours. So I will abridge some of the stories, but I will tell you guys that I used to not have don't lie on this because I just assumed that everybody was working under that premise. But I had a lot of questions about that over the years. So I put this as the first one. Obviously, lying is unethical. It's not a great social practice, but it also comes back to bite you. We want to curate the information to further our goal, but we certainly don't want to make up data and we don't want to lie. So I always tell this story, and I will tell this one. I had a buyer interested in a Chelsea 2-bedroom condo a few years ago, maybe 2014. So more than a few years ago. And this was my old Douglas Elliman office. And we had a hallway. My private office was on the right. My friend Tracy, her office was on the left. We used to keep our doors open for airflow. And the property was asking 185. We had negotiated up to 175, but we were told there was another offer at ask and we'd have to come up to ask to get it. Tracy actually heard me on the phone with the agent. And when I got off the phone, she said, I'm the other offer. We actually pulled it 2 days ago. So I knew that they didn't have the other offer. How did I use that to my benefit? I tapped into the seller's agent's motivation. He had an offer that disappeared. What was my leverage? To threaten to have my offer disappear as well. Because now he went from having 2 offers in a competitive situation for his seller to none. My client did want this property. He was willing to come up to the 185 if need be. He wanted to get it for under 1.8. So what I did was with my seller's buyer's permission, of course, I called the agent and I said, you know what? Since you have the 185, we see value. I always say this. I don't say we want to get it here or we feel. We see value at the 175. My client likes the property. It's his first choice, but since you have the 185, we're going to continue to look at other property. I never say that we're pulling the offer. In very, very rare instances, my premise is the water's warm, come on in. I want to keep doors open. So what I said to him is the same thing I say to every agent when we're moving on. You know, we made this offer. We're very happy to transact here. However, we're going to look at other properties and most likely he's going to buy something else. However, if your seller, this other deal falls apart, which I knew it already did, we're here at 175 and we're ready to go. Half an hour later, we get a phone call. We'll take the 175. Him lying saved my buyer $100,000. He was willing to go higher. If we weren't lied to, if I didn't catch him in the lie and I wasn't able to, put the pressure on him because I knew that now he'd have to tell his seller 2 buyers just backed out. I used that to my advantage, and he cost his clients significant money by lying. He could have told me they didn't have the offer. However, they really need to get their number. This is where they see value. This is where they're willing to transact. Instead, he lied. And because of that, I put the pressure on him as opposed to him put the pressure on me. Listen more than you speak. Everybody thinks negotiation is about speaking. I think the best tools we have in negotiation is asking questions and pausing. Awkward silence, I found to be one of my greatest tools. And that's hard for me. I like to talk. But I understand people come to you. They give you information, especially real estate agents. Most of them like to speak. Let them give you the answer. You don't always have to tell them. Let them come to you. So, people love to talk. We do all of our own showings here in New York. We don't have lock boxes. So I don't walk around pointing out window treatments. Here's the kitchen. Here's the bathroom. I ask very benign questions, but they're benign questions that I will get answers to and that I can use to figure out the motivation of the person who's potentially going to be negotiating with us on the property. So I ask very benign questions like, oh, are you just looking in the Upper East Side? Is this, your price point? Because I do often have other listings coming up. Is there, is this your top budget? I want to know what their top budget is so I can look at what other properties they could potentially be looking at. I want to know the geography of where they're looking for the same reason. So I know potentially we're the only property that's in that geography, the right bedroom count, the right price point at that moment. The market is the moment. The market is what's on the market at that time, the inventory. So I had a listing, I'll abridge this story, but I had a listing on East 79th Street, Upper East Side a few years ago. It was a long-term client. I thought the property was worth about 145, 1475. She wanted to try to get closer to 1.6. They weren't in a rush. And I said, sure. However, in 2 weeks, if we don't have an accepted offer, we're going to lower the price below 1.5. And I put that in the listing agreement. Again, it's setting expectations and removing a possible negative conversation. They come to me after 2 weeks and say, Seth, is it time to get the price reduction as opposed to me chasing them? I always give them the tools to make the decisions that are best for them with my guidance, but I want to give them ownership of it. So we had the place on the market for 1 week, 1.595 listing price, I believe, or 1.575 actually, 1.575. We got a cash offer, accepted 1.5. I thought that was very strong. We accepted it. They backed out. Next week, we got another offer, I think 1.475, also cash. They backed out. So now we're at the 2-week mark, and my client, who I've known forever, we've done about 5 transactions together at that point, she came to me and said, Seth, is it time to lower the price? I said, hold on. There's one agent, she's one of the top agents in the city, top 2 or 3 agents in the city at the time, who's brought her clients to 2 open houses. I think that they're your buyer. Let's not lower the price before a potential negotiation. Why would we lower the price before a potential negotiation if we think there's a negotiation? So I said, hold on. So they came back for a 3rd viewing. And I asked them, are you only looking the Upper East Side? And they said, yes, only in this specific school district. I said, are you looking up to 1.6? Is that your budget? Because I oftentimes have more properties coming to market and I could, let you know if there's something that fits. They said, yeah, we can go up to about 1.8. So what did I do? Went straight to my computer after the showing, and you could do this on the telephone with the agent if you're not showing the property yourself. If it's, key with, lockbox, you can certainly ask this when you follow up or when you set the appointment. So I realized that we were the only property that fit their criteria. This was May. I knew they had to be closed in a couple months in order to get into that school district. And it's a co-op. So I knew 2-3 months is what it takes to close a co-op. So they needed to pull the trigger on this property right then. There were a couple other people that had expressed interest, but no other offers. So I didn't lie, but I did create urgency. I said, because of the level of interest on this property, we're going to best and final with a deadline of Thursday at 5 p.m. At the moment, it was just them. I thought maybe we'd get another couple participants. We didn't. So I wound up having a best and final with one person. We wound up getting 1.625. We were about to drop the price to 1.495. But because I listened to their goals, because I did the research, I realized they needed this property. Sometimes there is an urgency of one person. We need to be mindful of that and understand so that, we're fiduciaries. We're trying to maximize the outcome for our client. In this case, was the seller. Be confident. Don't be cocky. We want to be collaborative. We want to seem like we're, I'm a friendly guy. I genuinely like the agents that I deal with, but I always want to seem like I'm being collaborative, but I also want to be confident. I never say, oh, do you think your seller would come down to 1.2? I say instead, we like this property. I have a savvy, sophisticated buyer. He sees value up to 1.2. In order to get this done, it's got to be somewhere around there. You're a good agent. This is the collaborative part. You're a good agent. You understand that that's where the value is. Do what you can in order to help get this done, because I've got somebody here that you're going to see at the closing table if we can get the value that's appropriate for this property. It's all about value. It's not about I feel, I want. We're talking about value. We're talking about what my client is willing to do in order to get this done. and I'm being collaborative by saying, you've seen this, and then I'll curate the comps for them. Be creative. Just because it's not done doesn't mean that you can't do it. Just because it's not normally done. So here in New York, we have a mansion tax for property over 1 million. Property that's priced under 1.1 million, people often try to get for 995 to avoid this 1% mansion tax. It's $10,000. I don't think that my seller should have to trade $50,000 to save the buyer 10,000. So what I started doing, any property under 1.1, between 1 million and 1.1, because that's where we see people try to negotiate based on mansion tax. I put in the first line of the description, obviously having the conversation with the seller first. Seller offering to pay mansion tax. What am I doing? I'm setting an expectation that it's going to trade above 1 million. I'm removing the negative of the mansion tax. But with the seller, I'm often saying, let's just bake it into the price. We'll raise the price $10,000 because the buyers are so focused on saving that mansion tax that we can actually push them a little bit by offering this $10,000. Also, when you're negotiating with developers, they care about the optics. Here in New York, we could have a 400-unit building. I had a $10 million contract out right before the financial collapse of 2009. We wound up getting it for $7 million, but the optics showed $10 million. We got a parking spot for $500,000. We got common charges and taxes paid for 10 years. We got $1 million decorator credit. It netted out $7 million for my client, but the developer got to show the optics of $10 million. And why is that important to them? Because it's a domino effect. They start to discount one house, everybody's expecting that discount on the rest of the houses. So when you're negotiating with an individual seller, they don't care about the optics. It's more about the number for them. When you're negotiating with the developer, it's about the optics. So you've got to be a little creative there. Also, mortgage contingencies. I got very creative with this around 2007. I think this came to me. In New York, we put 10% deposit down. A $2 million property, that's a $200,000 down payment. So if we have to waive the mortgage contingency in a very competitive situation, client is risking $200,000. That's pretty big. If they lose their job, they get hit by a bus, whatever it is. So what I started doing was we still put the 10% deposit down, but we make the offer, we waive the contingency on financing, but we only risk 2% of the purchase price as opposed to the full 10%. $40,000 is a much easier pill to swallow in the unlikely event that they don't get financing, but it shows that we have skin in the game to the seller, but it also mitigates some of the risk for the buyer, which is my client, and that's who I really care about, right? So we can be creative. We don't have to do the same thing everybody's always been doing. This industry has been around for a long time, and people tend to do things the same way they've been doing as long as I can remember, which is 20 plus years. And people that have been in the business longer, I'm sure can attest to the fact that people have been doing this the same way for 40 years. So we as long as it's legal, there's no reason we have to do it the same way that everybody else is doing. So I'm the only person I know that does that negotiation besides my team, because they've learned it from me. I've never had somebody present an offer that way to me. You can do that. There's no reason that you have to essentially lose a full down payment. You can negotiate what piece you need to pull back. Obviously, in a really competitive bidding situation, I know that we have low inventory and some properties are getting multiple offers. Some of that creativity is not necessarily possible, but you can at least present it, and you present it confidently. We're still showing you skin in the game. Nobody's walking away from $40,000. It's still not contingent on financing. We're just trying to mitigate the risk in case there's a very unlikely situation that happens in the future, and you're still getting some money for your time. Be collaborative. I mentioned remove negatives. So I think it's hugely important to remove negatives with people before the wrong information gets cemented in their head. It is very hard to change people's minds once they've made a decision. They think your property is overpriced. You can show them all the comps in the world. The buyer still thinks it's overpriced. So I want to get ahead of that. When people make appointments to see my property, I will tell them, I will, bait the water. I will give them the information to show them where the value is. I had a property on East 75th Street. We were about to hit the market at, I think, 1.15 or 1.2. And there was a closing right before we were apartment 4A. Apartment 8A, which cleared the building across the street, much better view, southern exposure views, I think, to the Chrysler building, if I recall. They closed for 800,000. That was not going to bode well. So I did some research. I spoke to people in the building. I found out it was a parent selling to a child, and that was the lowest recorded price that the co-op would allow. So what did I say the first time people called or emailed to make an appointment? Oh, as I'm sure you saw, I'm sure they didn't see yet, because people don't oftentimes do that research until they like a property. But I want to take that negative off the table first. So I would tell them, as I'm sure you saw, apartment 8A, same property, 4 floors higher, just traded for 800. That was a parent selling to a child, and then I can go into why the value is good. Another example of a negative, I had a 2,500 square foot, 3-bedroom condo, luxury building in Chelsea. Chelsea condo like that should trade for close to 5 million. We were under 3 million. And why were we under 3 million? Because every single window faced a brick wall 5 feet away. Every window. So when people came in, first thing I did was, come check out this view. Come over here, check out the view. They said it's a brick wall. I said, well, you've heard of $1 million view? This is a $2.35 million view. So in a city of trade-offs, you're trading the view for a luxury 2,500 square foot condo in a prime location. And this view gives the value to this apartment. We sold it for full ask because we've removed the negative of the brick wall, turned it into a positive. That's one example. You can do that with everything. Everything is a price associated with the trade-off. So in order for people to get value, we have to talk about trade-offs. We're not necessarily making excuses for the view. We're talking about that view bringing value, or the location, of a house. This location is getting you an extra bedroom. This location is getting you into this school district. Whatever it is, there is always something that the trade-off is getting you. So you have to focus on the removal of the negative and presenting the positive aspect of that trade-off. Creating urgency, we talked about that. Oftentimes creating urgency is just understanding the motivation of the buyer or the buyers. I don't, people ask, how many offers do you have? I always say, well, we have a high level of interest. We've got a lot of participants. Because of that, we're going to the best and final. I will not tell people how many participants there are. I know people, do you guys have to? Okay. Yeah. Okay. I know certain places, because I teach this class around the country. I say things and people are like, oh, that doesn't work here. And I'm like, well, we could tweak that. There's always a way to tweak it, but I'm not a believer in telling people how many. I want to keep people guessing. I want them to have to come to me for information, and then I can curate and pick which pieces of information I want to give in order to maximize, again, the result. Who do we negotiate with? Everybody. Who's the most important person we negotiate with? Our clients. We're negotiating our value right up front. I negotiate my value through stories. I tell them stories of my client's success more so than, saying, oh, $1 billion worth of sales. Oh, this, that, the other thing. I negotiate my value by telling stories of my client's success, because they're going to be one of my clients, and I'm taking them along on the journey, the understanding of what I do for my clients. And again, I always tell everybody when I talk to them, lucky you, starting right now, you have me as a free consultant and advisor for life. Yes, I'm going to make money when we transact, but I am your advisor and your consultant for life. And that comes at no cost. Obviously, if we transact, there's a cost, but you have me forever. That ingratiates me and it builds trust. I don't make it about the transaction. I look at their entire journey. I always am asking what comes next. And then we cater our strategy to what's coming next. Again, nobody's taking the money and putting it under the bed. For some people, when they have a certain opportunity, taking a little haircut on their property is okay, because what comes next is a better opportunity. We need to understand that, because then we could concentrate on speed as opposed to maximizing the price. Not everybody wants the same thing. We go into a listing presentation thinking everybody wants the same thing. You're going to be wrong sometimes. So it's really important to ask people, why are we, sitting down today? What comes next? Obviously, you're not selling and moving into the street. Something's happening next. What is that opportunity, and how can we help move that along? Certainly we're negotiating with agents. We'll talk about that a little bit more on the other side of a transaction. But again, I truly believe the most important negotiation is setting expectations with your clients. Also getting ahead of negatives like the price reduction. If you're springing things upon people during the transaction, they're going to be upset. If you let them know before, you give them a roadmap of what they can expect, what the expectations are, what negatives feasibly could happen, they're going to be much better, prepared for it, and much, the response is going to be much better when we remove those negatives. So negotiation begins at first contact. I spoke to you guys about that a little bit. When I'm speaking with a buyer, for instance, I have a cheat sheet in front of me with 12 data points, month over month, year over year, for their particular market segment. If it's Chelsea 2-bedroom co-op, I have amount of inventory, month over month, year over year, percent change. I have the amount of demand, meaning in contract activity, month over month, year over year. I do a ratio of active to in contract, and that ratio gives me the market pulse. That's how I can score one neighborhood or one property segment against another. It's really important to differ, especially these days. I know that it's happening here, and I know that it's happening around the country. Some properties being rewarded, some properties being punished. Certain segments are doing better than others. There's arbitrage opportunities. We need to not talk about the market as a whole as much, but talk about market segments, because people trade from market segment to market segment, and some of them might be performing differently at the same time. I remember this was 2019. Our market sort of started to falter a little bit after the tax change. And I bumped into a client of mine. I sold her a 1-bedroom co-op in Chelsea in 2007. This was now 2019. Bumped into her in a restaurant with her then brand new husband. I was talking to them, and she said, "Oh, we're trying to have a kid." And, I said, "Oh, that 1-bedroom is going to get real tight real quick, right?" She said, "Yeah, but I think we're going to wait a little bit because the market's so bad." I said, her name was Elizabeth. I said, "Elizabeth, can I come over Thursday, after work, and just talk to you about market dynamics? If you did trade this apartment at this point, what would you want next?" She said, "Oh, I don't want to be in a co-op anymore. I want condo." So I knew that the condo market was actually pretty weak at that moment in time, and the co-op market was strong. But what I didn't know until I went and looked, the co-op market in Chelsea, the market pulse was like 1.25, meaning there was 25% more things in contract than there were available. The 3-bedroom condo market, the market pulse was like 0.15, meaning there was 7 times as much inventory as there was in contract. So I talked to her, she's a really intelligent person, about trading in a seller's market, selling in a seller's market, and buying in a buyer's market. So we put her place on the market, 1.2 million. No 1-bedroom had ever traded at that number. We got 1.2. She wound up getting a new construction 3-bedroom condo that was asking 4.5 for like 3.6. Today, that apartment's worth like, so it's arbitrage. If you understand the differences between different market segments, bedroom counts, one town versus another, if people are agnostic about which town they want to be, but they want to be in this area, they can sell in a desirable area and move maybe into something that's a little more vulnerable at the moment. So we need to have a bird's eye view and be able to drill down into data. Buyers love when I talk about information that they don't have. If we're just pulling the same information that they can get online, they're not going to see value. They're not going to be as loyal. And you're not going to have a client for life. So I have days on market, but it's month over month, year over year. I've got average listing discount, day over month, year over year. I have percent of units going above ask, month over month, year over year. I've 12 of these data points, and I speak to them in the first contact with buyers and sellers because that establishes me as a market expert. That's the first thing that we need to accomplish, is establishing yourself as a market expert.
Yeah.
That first conversation is also understanding their goals. Once we meet in person, that's when I'm going to talk strategy. That's when I'm going to talk marketing. That's when I'm going to talk price. That's when we're going to talk commission, whatever it is. But that first call is really to understand who they are, what they want, and conveying value, which is stories of client success and pieces of data that they don't have access to. If we're just regurgitating stuff that they can find online, believe me, more often than not, they're going to be much less loyal and, lower chance of you actually getting them to the closing table. Again, real estate transactions should be seem amicable. These are not hostile takeovers. This is human to human. We need to stay calm. There's certainly a bunch of agents in New York City that, do not stay calm and are not amicable, but I don't meet them where they come from. I'm always looking to be the diplomat, but I'm doing that like judo. I want to use their energy in order to get a better outcome for my buyers or sellers. So I'm very friendly. I understand that, in any given market, most of the listings are held by the same agents. You don't want to piss those people off. You want to have these people on your side. So when there's 15-person bidding situation, you're the one that gets the inside information. You're the one that maybe gets the leg up if there's a quote unquote tie, or you're getting the opportunity first. You're not the highest offer, but we like your terms. Would you be willing to come up $40,000 and win this? I get those calls all the time because I treat the brokerage community like gold. It's our number one resource. Our number one resource is our local brokerage community. We think of them as competition. I think we're only competition for about 5 minutes. We're colleagues and collaborators for years. So it's really important to have good relationships in the market. How do we negotiate from a position of strength without seeming overly pushy or inflexible? Because I think this is huge. Nobody wants to feel like they're getting pushed around. Again, we do this by curating information. We do this by, the water's warm, not high pressure pushing people away. If I know that a property is incredibly overpriced, I don't call the agent out. I don't tell them, how'd you get the price so wrong? Because guess what? They didn't want that price. The seller wanted the price. They already tried to get the price down. So instead of saying, you're an idiot, I say, I feel for you. I'm sure you were trying to get this price a little bit lower. I'm setting an expectation. I'm also being friendly. I'm being empathetic. And I say, we really like this property. Again, I have a really savvy, sophisticated buyer who's willing to transact where there's value. That the value is, 1.1 range here. I know you're priced at 1.4. I'm sure that was not your suggestion. But let's see what we can do with the seller to get them realistic and into the range where my buyer is going to see value and move forward on this. Right? What did I do there? I'm being amicable. I'm being empathetic, but I'm also strong arming them a little bit. I'm saying this is the number where there's value. This is where we see value. This is where we're willing to transact. Again, every market is different. If it's a hyper aggressive seller's market, you've got to understand where value is. I talk to my clients and I say 10 real estate agents could price the same property 10 different ways. We don't care about asking price. We care about value. And value can be less than ask, and value can be more than ask. If a property is worth 1 million and it's priced at 900,000, grab it. If a property is worth 1 million and it's priced at 1.2, we've got some work to do. But value is what we care about, and value is what we're pursuing. And we want to maybe do a little bit better than value. That's the conversation I have with my clients. It's not about asking price. It's irrelevant. You guys saw this in the suburbs in New Jersey. Asking price was artificially low for so long, and people were bidding $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 above ask. Price is marketing. Value is what we're trying to establish. Making an offer for a buyer, and I'm moving pretty quick. I'm trying to be respectful of everybody's time. Making an offer for a buyer, I have a very detailed cover page on my offers. It bolds the high level details that we need to know, especially for a co-op here in the city: debt to income ratio, post-close liquidity, mortgage contingency, percent down, closing date, inclusions, whatever it is, in bold on that first page. Do I email it over? No. I pick up the phone, I call the agent. They don't pick up, I don't press send. I call them back. I say, do you have a moment to speak? Once I confirm they have a moment to speak, I press send. And then I ask, did you see the offer that I sent over? They say, oh, not yet. Let me check. Guess what? It's the first thing in the top of their inbox because I just press send. What do? They always read me the first paragraph, the bold points. They say, okay, the offer is 1.75. Oh, contingent on financing. I'll hear the intonation in their voice, what the pain point is. I will hear if it's price. I will hear if it's contingency. I will hear if it's closing date. That way I have information to take back to my seller or my buyer, sorry. And it's not always good information. It's not always the information we want, but all information is good information because it gives us a path forward to negotiate. So I'm able to call my seller or my buyer, I keep saying seller, call my buyer and say, it sounds like price is not the issue here. However, this contingency seems like a sticking point. This is a creative, strategic way to mitigate that risk for you. Or, it seems like the mortgage contingency is fine, but we're going to have to focus on price here. There, really seems like price is the issue here. We come up with a top number, and then we negotiate off of that top number. And if we don't get the property, we don't get the property. In a competitive bidding situation, I always talk to my clients about coming up with a value, coming up with a number that we're willing to transact on. However, I also want to know their time frame. What's the time horizon that they're going to be in the property? If they're going to be in the property for 5 years, and we assume average 4%, 3-4% per year appreciation, we need to get good value because of closing costs on the front and back end. We need to get the right value. If they're going to be in the property, this actually just happened the other day. Client of mine referred their mother to me. She lost out on one property in Park Slope, and she told me she didn't want to miss out on another. So the next property, I said to her, I see value up to 1.4, let's call it. What you're going to be here for 20 years, or let's call it 1.5. You're going to be here for 20 years. You're going to see $600,000 appreciation in 20 years on average. Are you willing to trade a little bit of that future appreciation to get the property today? She said yes. So we bid about $80,000 more than we thought the property was worth today. So basically, she was just trading away 3 of the next 20 years of appreciation, or 4 of the next 20 years of appreciation in order to get it today.
Hey, Seth, can I interrupt you real quick? I apologize. How are you doing on time? I don't know if you've seen the feedback in the chat has been amazing. People are loving this.
Yeah, I'm doing good.
And we have
but I'm not looking at the chat.
50 or so agents from all different companies, and the number's been kind of climbing. So people are definitely interested. So if you have some extra time and you want to go a little bit over, we would love.
Sure.
But we do want to save time for Q&A as well.
Yeah,
so.
I do have a 3:30 call, so maybe I'll do another 10 minutes and then get into
Perfect.
Get into questions. So for a seller, when I receive an offer for a seller, I do the same thing. I don't believe in hiding behind texts and emails. I want to hear people's intonations. I want to ask them questions. I want to get to the whys, the hows to moving this forward. So someone emails me over an offer, I call them, they don't pick up. What do? I text them and I say, oh, before I submit this to my seller, there's just a couple clarifying points I want to go over before I can speak to my seller. A couple questions I have for you about the offer. Guess what? They always pick up. They always call me because obviously they want the offer to be presented. So what do? I do the same thing, but I pause after I read the pain point and I let them fill in the gap. So we have something we're on the market for 1.9, offers 1.65. Terrible offer. Before I take it to my seller, I want to understand why they're offering 165. I don't point blank ask them why they're offering 165. I read it back to them and I say, okay, the offer's contingent on financing, offers 1.65. Interesting. I pause. I read the pain point back, and instead of putting them in an awkward position and saying, how come you gave us this terrible offer? I pause. I'll pause for 20 seconds. I don't care. They're always going to fill in the gap. There's either the response that we want or the response we don't want. But either way, we've got something to talk to our client about. So they either say one of two things. Oh, don't worry, this is an opening offer. They always do this. It's just the way they negotiate. Or, the not as good information, but also important information for me to know is, oh, well, they're looking for value. They're looking for opportunity. They've made offers on 4 different places. I get to call my seller and I say, the first one, don't worry, we're going to be able to negotiate. This is just an opening offer. I confirm that with the seller or the buyer's agent. So don't be offended. Everybody negotiates different. It only matters where we land. Doesn't matter where we start, right? So I'm keeping them calm. I'm keeping them, in play with this potential buyer, as opposed to saying, no, we're not going to negotiate with them. They came in too low. The other thing where they said, they are looking for value. This is, an offer that they're making, and they're making offers elsewhere. I get to go to my seller and I say, I know you're trying to get to Florida to live near your grandkids. We've not had other offers. We potentially will get other offers. We could get better offers. But I know that selling right now is important to you. We're probably not going to get them up to the number that we discussed. We could get them up a little bit, I'm sure. But this is a buyer who's making offers all over the place. You have an opportunity to lock this down at a little bit of a lower number, or we can certainly negotiate hard with them. There's a good chance we're going to lose them, but we'll live to fight another day and we'll get another buyer. Give them the choice, but I'm telling them how this is going to move forward. I'm the expert. I've been doing this a long time. I'm going to tell them how it's going to play out. They get to make the decision. I was just with my buyer earlier, most of today, until I came on this call, from India, who is a hotelier, owns, he's a very successful guy, but he's really looking for value. And I said the same thing to him. There's opportunity, but not every opportunity is equal. Some sellers are vulnerable, some are not. We're not negotiating the same with everybody, right? We're not getting the same results with everybody. We're trying to maximize the result, but sellers have bottom lines, buyers have top lines. So it's not always going to be a match, but we're doing the best we can to make the opportunities work. If not, we move on to something else. Sellers market strategies. So I have 3 pricing strategies in a seller's market. Like a lot of people do, I like to underprice, but I like to underprice just a little bit. 3%, not 10%, not 15%. I want to underprice it enough to bring people in, to get people interested. But just in case we only have 1 or 2 participants, I don't want to have to make up such a big gap. So 3-4% under value is where I'll price in a seller's market. In a buyer's market, I like to look at the average discount for that market segment and just price it in. If the average discount is 3.5%, I want to overprice it from where I think it's going to land by 3.5%. So they just negotiate us back to value. as opposed to putting it on at value and then them expecting a negotiation from there. So I build in the little buffer. I know that's different from a lot of people. A lot of people think you get ahead of a buyer's market and price aggressively. I actually think the opposite. I think you want to price in that little buffer because they're expecting a negotiation. Let's give them the negotiation. Let's put a little more meat on the bone for them to chop off. Neutral market, I like to price on the money, right on the money. So what do we do in a seller's market when we're working with buyers? Again, it's talking about value, not asking price. Yes, there's a lot of agents out there that are pricing low in order to get bidding wars. Don't focus on if you're paying above ask. We're going to come up with a value based on the comparative analysis and market analysis that I'm going to give you. And we're going to come up with a number before we walk in the door. Before we make our offer, there's a number where we see value. We're trying to get buyers to focus on value and opportunity as opposed to asking price in a seller's market, because things are going to go above ask. And if they're always trying to stay below or at ask, how many properties are they going to lose? They're going to lose all the properties. So we need to have them focus on value. In a buyer's market, what do we do with sellers? Obviously, sellers need to understand, and we give them the tools to understand that it's a buyer's market. But we're going to do everything to protect the value. We're going to show your property in the absolute best light. In a buyer's market, we need to do painting more so. We need to do more staging. We need to do more repairs. We need to do really great video tours. Whatever it is, we need to do this stuff in order to attract and entice buyers to participate in our listing. And we cannot be crazy overpriced. Some people in a buyer's market will way overprice because they think there's going to be a big negotiation. I think if the average discount is 3.5%, overpriced by 3.5%. And then, we talked about commission. It's a marketing piece. It's a way to net you more money. We got to remove the idea that it's a payment for us. And, I do this hard work. I deserve this. No, tap into their motivation, make it about them. Local expert. I've got an incredible story, and maybe I'll just end with this one. I got my screen blurred, but this is a, let me see if I can unblur that real quick. So this I can tell because of the team name has changed. This was around 2015. This is the 21st floor, very large 2-bedroom in Gramercy, top floor, looking over the East River all the way to Long Island. However, it was painted burgundy and the ceilings were gray. And this was a 96-year-old man who was leaving New York to move to where his girlfriend was in Arizona. 96-year-old guy traveling cross country to be with his girlfriend. His daughter, Hollywood producer, she was the one that called me. My aunt owned an art gallery in New York City for many years. She must have retired based on this guy because he had sculptures and art everywhere. It was a very large apartment, but it felt tiny because of the paint, because of everything. And it's also a building where this one agent, she's been doing 95% of the deals in the building for 40 years. I knew that going in. I'd done other deals in the building. I knew that she's the gatekeeper to that building, just like you guys have gatekeepers to different neighborhoods, I'm sure. So I walk in and the daughter meets me at the door and she says, "Seth, thank you so much for coming. Your aunt had mentioned you, and out of respect, we wanted to have you over. But my father's already decided to use a lane." I said, "Oh, okay. No, I understand. She's been doing business in this building for a long time." I knew that going in, of course, so I was prepared. So I said, "What did she say the property was worth?" Out of curiosity. "Oh, 1.4. So I came in today not knowing what the condition of the apartment is, but seeing it as it is, I think you can get 1.5. If we minimize the furniture and just paint it, and I can get you a paint job I got it for them for $11,000. So it's way under market for an apartment that size. I think you can realistically achieve 1.6 million. They hired me because this 96-year-old guy, besides going to moved to where his girlfriend was, cared about every last dollar. I think he thought he was going to live to about 120. So he wanted every dollar out of this property. So he signed up with me. We staged, but using his own stuff, just minimizing it. $11,000 paint job. The day before we list, I looked, we were the only 2-bedroom in Gramercy under 2 million. I called Helen, the daughter, and I said, Helen, I know that we talked about 1.6. I'd like to try for 1.7. There's no competition right now. We don't price in a vacuum. We price against competition. And right now there's no competition. So we're not beholden to the most recent comps. We are a unicorn. We are the only property under 2 million. Let's push. She said, Seth, I've been buying and selling real estate for 40 years. Nobody has ever asked me to raise a price. I said, well, now you have that experience because I'm asking you. She agreed. We put it on the market for 1.7. First open house, building agent comes in front of everybody at the open house. She goes, this is so overpriced it will never sell. Because guess what? The local expert is not a market expert. I'm a market expert. And this is what I tell people. I can convey value to people that are looking in multiple neighborhoods because I sell in multiple neighborhoods. I'm all about contextualizing value because I understand that markets are fluid, markets are dynamic. And the comp from 6 months ago, even if that's the only comp, it might not really be applicable today, but that local expert is going to be tied to that comp. So Elaine came in front of everybody. This is so overpriced that we'll never sell.
We have Spanish and they make us pack up.
So fortunately, the person who wound up being the buyer was not there at that moment. Came a little bit after she left. Came back with his agent a few days later. And I said, as you see, we're the only 2-bedroom under 2 million. This is going to go quick. He goes, well, I want it. What do I have to do? I said, he said, what do I need to do to get this property? He wanted to be in the neighborhood and it was the only property on the market. I said, well, I think if you get me 175, we're asking 1.7, I think I can talk the seller into accepting it. I mean, I knew. So we got 175 cash. We accept it. I reached out to the building agent to thank her for coming and letting her know that we had a signed contract at 1.75. But what do I do with this? I take this show sheet, this brochure on every listing appointment. So I can tell this story. It's a prop. It gives me a way to talk about staging, a way to talk about local expert, and something that makes me look like a pricing expert, which I am. But I tell stories. I tell stories of this particular story. $11,000 pay job netted $350,000. 350 on Elaine's 1.4 million valuation, 25%. I got 25% more. How? By not being tied to just the recent comps in the building, understanding the dynamics of the market as a whole, and $11,000 worth of upgrades to the apartment. The hardest objection or concern to deal with is the friend or family member. So what do I always say when they tell me that they've got a friend or a family member? First of all, I don't tell them the price. I give them a range because I don't want them to use that price against me. Give it to their friend or family member. So I always, when they ask for a price, I say, well, pricing is fluid because markets are dynamic. We don't price in a vacuum. We can come up with a range, but we actually have to price against the competition of what's on the market the day we list. So this is the range. We'll give the range. I don't want to give them the exact number. And I will also say there's a reason I'm here. You didn't call me up just to tell me you had a friend or a family member in the business. You called me because I'm the expert you want to use. You feel obligated to, your friend or family member. So I have a creative solution for that. A lot of my business is referred to me by real estate agents around the country. I'm willing to give your friend or family member a 25% referral fee. And guess what? I will let them see what I do throughout the process. So this can not only be a way for them to make free money, but it's a way for them to learn and become an expert. What am I doing there? I'm giving them something that they can offer to their friend or family member, but I'm also ingraining in them that I'm the expert. Like I got something to teach this person, right? So oftentimes they don't want to do that. They just want to hire me. But I will always say, and you guys should say this as well, there's a reason I'm here. And it wasn't for you to tell me that your friend or family member is in the business. I'm the person you want to hire. Right? It's confident. It's not confrontational. It exudes something that they want working for them, right? So again, understand the motivation, speak to the concerns, remove the negatives, and we're doing all of that with all of these, dealing with concern issues. And then let's see if there's anything else. Just because it's not typically done, we talked about that. And I always have the other side thank me at the closing table, even when I feel like we've really pushed. And one thing that I didn't touch upon is we need to stay calm. Our clients, they can go up and down emotionally with the process. You're the professional. The doctor doesn't go up and down through the process. They stay steady, right? The patient's the one that gets worked up and the doctor tries to keep them calm. We want to stay calm, whether we're, it's the other side of the deal and they're going crazy. We want to be keeping things sane and keeping things even for our clients. They didn't hire us to say, oh yeah, that guy's such a jerk. They hired us to say, well, don't worry, we're going to get the right value, and don't worry, they're not going to be there when you move in. I want to consider, I always consider myself the dock, DOCK. My client is the boat. I want to keep them tethered to the dock. The market will go up and down. The process, the participants are the rising and sinking tide, but we want to keep them tethered to the dock so that they feel that as little as possible and they concentrate on the end result and not what happens during the transaction. Always want to keep them focused on the result. Always want to keep them focused on the net. It's all about what's in their pocket or what they have acquired at the end of the process. That's it. So if you guys have any questions, I'd love to answer them. I've got about 10 minutes. Is there anything in the chat?
Yeah, so I'm going to just start from the top of the chat. Sam Costello, do you want to unmute yourself? You had a couple great questions in here. Looks like he's not. All right, I'll read what he wrote in the chat. When you are on a listing appointment and the client says you are pretty much even with the other realtors I've met in regards to commission advertising, knowing the local market experience. So why should I choose you?
I'm not going to accept that we're equal. That's between us, but I'm going to convey that. There are other great agents in the city. One of the reasons that people hire me is because of the track record of success. How did I get that track record of success? First of all, I care about my clients. I'm an advisor, I'm a consultant, and I'm your advisor consultant starting today. And I'm your advisor consultant moving forward long after these transactions are done. But what you care about is your bottom line. You care about what you net. You want to hire a negotiation expert. You want to hire somebody that's well respected in the brokerage community that can use those relationships to maximize the exposure and maximize the results for you. It is all about what you net, and I'm 100% confident that I'm going to put you in the strongest position to net the most money. I don't start to negotiate commission because commission to me is something that, and this is not me talking to the client, I've already established this, commission is something that they need to use in order to maximize exposure to their property. It's a marketing tool. But I'll concentrate on my client's past success. I'll concentrate on my negotiation tact, and I will concentrate on my relationships in the industry. Not only do I have incredible relationships with the agents locally, I also have incredible relationships with agents around the country. This is New York City. We're the tip of the spear. Your buyers are not just coming from New York City. So you want somebody that's really connected to a buyer pool and an agent pool around the country so we can bring this to the attention of people that may not know about it. The local market knows about your property. They're going to see it online. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it outside of the local market to the suburban neighborhoods where people are buying second homes, to the suburban markets where people are buying places for their children. You want an agent that's really connected to the agent community because guess who brings the buyers? Agents. The buyers are going to see this. What we need to do is get this to the agents that are outside of our market. And I'm in a unique position to do that. So I don't disparage the other agent. Never. Even Elaine, 1.4. I thought that was crazy. I didn't say, oh, she's crazy. I said, well, a good thing about me is I'm a market expert. I'm not just tied to the comps in this building for my market analysis. Talk about what you do differently. Talk about what you bring to the table. Do not disparage the other agents. It's not a good look, and it's not going to get you forward. It's about differentiating yourself. So that question, I reject that question on the premise that I'm the same as everybody else. I'm going to show you why I'm not the same as everybody else, but I'm not going to put down the other agent.
Awesome. Agnes, did you want to unmute? Otherwise, I can ask for you. Send you a message. Right. Agnes asks, how to convince a seller who has interviewed several discount brokers before interviewing to work with me, besides offering a value that I can ultimately generate a higher than market value price. What other suggestions do you have?
So again, I'm not going to disparage this other agent. Everybody's doing what they think is best. In this case, that other agent is most likely trying to win the listing by offering a lower commission. So I'm seeing that person's motivation is to get the business, right? My motivation is to get you the highest number. Tried and true methodology for getting a higher number is to incentivize the brokerage community. This is a marketing tool in order to bring the most people to your property. What is the goal here? We want to sell it for the highest number in the shortest amount of time. How do we do that? We get the most people interested in the shortest amount of time. 95% of people, at least where I am, are represented by agents. Not everybody's doing 100 transactions a year. Some of them are doing one. The difference between 3% and 2.5% is 17%. If they're only doing that one deal, and there's two properties, apples to apples, that are exactly the same, price the same, similar on all levels, even if it's an unintended bias, they're going to be biased towards that higher commission price offered property. What we want to do is we want to tap into their self-interest. Guess what? I have a self-interest. My self-interest is not getting paid the most money on this transaction. My self-interest is in line with yours. I want the best result for you, because guess what happens when I get the best result for you? You refer me to your friends and family, the people in your neighborhood, the people in your building. They see the results, and that's my self-interest. And my self-interest, fortunately, is the same as yours. I want to sell it for the most money. I don't sugarcoat that I have a self-interest. Of course I do. I've worked in nonprofit at one point in my life, but I don't work in nonprofit anymore. So we just got to be very, very candid, but very positive. And, I'm not disparaging that other agent. That's great. That's their strategy for getting business, but that's not a good strategy for selling your property for the most money. So I will talk about that's a strategy for getting the listing, but what we care about is the strategy to net you the most money. This is how we're going to do it. Historically, this is how we see properties get the most interest. And when properties get the most interest, they sell quicker and for more money.
Awesome. Thank you, Seth. Seth said he would stay on for a couple more minutes. Any last questions? I don't have anything else in the chat.
Yeah, I got 3 minutes and 27 seconds. Whatever you guys want. But if not, I appreciate
All right,
it.
looks like we made it with 3 minutes to spare. One last time, anybody have a question? Otherwise, we'll wrap it up. Thank you so much,
Wait,
Seth.
oh.
Go ahead.
Wait, one last question. Sorry, one last question. Hi, it's Allie Murphy. Because the market stats are obviously, it's difficult in this market within a month to see like what's the list to sale price. So in terms of staying really on top of market stats and trying to help to, identify what's the best number for us to come in with a buyer, any thoughts on how we can, best anticipate? Aside from, I love that, where it's like, what is this value to you? And let's look at the opportunity in the future to, to have value in the home if you're staying for 7 to 10 years, et cetera. But anything else we can use?
We could potentially trade. So what I look at for value, obviously, New York City is especially the condo market, it's a big price per square foot valuation. So what I like to look at is the trend in price per square foot, month over month. Has it gone up? Has it gone down? I also, again, the market pulse tells me the relative strength of the market. That's the ratio of pending to active. It gives me the higher the number, the pending to active ratio, the higher the number, the more it's a seller's market. The lower the number, the more it's a buyer's market. So it's not only coming up with the number, it's setting the overall tone of what's going on in that market segment. And then we're, obviously not obviously to you maybe, but in New York, we have a very long protracted closing time frame. Our timeline's a little bit longer. So instead of only concentrating on sold data, which could be from 6 months ago, 5 months ago, 8 months ago, because by the time it closes, who knows how long it's been in contract. I want to look at the last number that something was at before it went into contract. I'm really more interested for current in the moment data. I want to see what's in contract. Then I can extrapolate based on, are things going above ask, below ask, and sort of look at where I anticipate those properties closing, and then talk to my clients with contemporary data, which is oftentimes contract signed. If we only concentrate on sold data, it's a lag. It's a lagging indicator. The contemporary data is the contract signed. So I don't know if that's helpful.
Yes, thank you.
All right. I think Sinai had the hand up for a second. Do you have a question? No? Okay. Seth, before we let you go, if everyone was up, go ahead.
I'd like to know if we can have the copy of the slides.
Yeah, I don't see why not. My director of operations would be able to get that to you guys.
Thanks.
Yeah, if you could just send it to
Great. Thank you so much.
Don't take it on the road. I'm just kidding.
Seth, if you could just send it to me or Elizabeth, we'll get it out to everybody that was on the call. Everybody, the feedback has been amazing. I'm sure one thing they want to know is, if they have a referral for New York City, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Well, if you want to give it to me, which would be nice, would be great, and I'll take incredible care
Sure
of that.
they do. That's why I'm asking.
My email is seth@levincong.com. And my phone number is 917-599-7572. And I think you guys have my signature as well, if you wanted to share that. And I think from the emails, everything should be in there. But this is our website, social media, and I'm Seth@levincong.com. All
right, great.
I appreciate it.
Again, thanks so much. The feedback, I don't know if you had a chance to look through it, but
I haven't. It's hard. It's hard to talk and read at the same time.
Yeah. People are, I saw the word genius in there thrown around, and the feedback is really amazing. So,
can you send that? Can you send that to my mother? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I ask a question? One of my agents wanted to know if you coach.
I do by accident.
Should I just have them contact you?
Yeah, I mean, people can reach out. I'm always happy to mentor or give advice, but I do not have a formal coaching program because I have a team and I've got a business that I'm actually fully in production. So I wear many, many hats, but I do mentor about 50 different people around the country, and it's all by accident from teaching these courses.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Of course, my pleasure.
All right. Again, thank you so much, Seth. This was super helpful and informative, and that wraps it up.
You're amazing.
I appreciate it. And if you guys ever want me to come back, I do teach a breaking into luxury, how to break into luxury course, and a couple others. But negotiation is always my favorite, just because it's.
Oh, how's Monday for the luxury class?
Perfect. I'll be in Texas with Gary.
All right.
I'll try to sneak out of his room to talk to you guys.
All right. Sounds great. Thanks, Seth. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Seth.
All right. Have a great weekend, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.